Just wanted to start with a note of care, because we might talk about some nice topics, but we're going to talk about some serious stuff, because serious things affect women and women's lives, and we've heard some of them today. And if we don't talk about them, we can't change the landscape, including for the 99.99 whatever people who aren't in the room, and support women to make change. Because the average woman is already giving more than her fair share. You don't need me to share the stats. You know that. She is giving more in care for children, for relatives. She's doing more of the domestic labor, about another 2 hours a day. It's all the chores that make houses run, lives run. She's doing more of the volunteering. And I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that a Harvard Business Study research paper found that that's mirrored at work. So she typically takes on more of what they call the office housework. I can see people smiling. Taking on organizing the meetings, doing the minutes, buying the birthday cakes, the birthday presents, organizing the events, and as we've heard today, doing all this amazing mentoring for people, their colleagues that they work with. And so we are surrounded by ordinary women who are giving and doing an extraordinary amount already. And they're in our workplaces. 900,000 women work in hospitality in the UK. They are in our communities and they're in our homes. And often they are also carrying additional burdens, invisible burdens, and loads as they come into work. And we're going to explore some of those today with this amazing panel of women to help make some of those more visible so that we can do more to support women with them. And all of these women impress and inspire me, because you're all doing work in your own way that is contributing towards shifting the landscape for women, for all those 900,000 women in hospitality. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ceri Gott. I spent 13 years leading people and planning at Hawksmoor restaurants, working with my brother Huw Gott and his best friend Will Beckett as we grew the business from 3 restaurants in London to 13 international restaurants, and being named a top 100 best companies to work for in each of those 13 years. And thank you. And I now coach and collaborate with other organizations who want to grow positively. And I was on the board at Hawksmoor, so that makes me exceptional, because I'm one of the few women in hospitality who do or who have sat on a board. And what makes my experience even more exceptional is that the other woman on the board was our chair, so there are even fewer women who chair, and that woman was none other than Karen Jones. And if you feel jealous when I say that, you absolutely should, because she is as generous a mentor as she seems. So that is exceptional. And alongside that, I've had a whole load of ordinary working women experiences, from navigating pregnancies, maternity leave, coming back, looking after children who had quite dramatic health conditions, looking after elder relatives, navigating hormone change, and often being the only woman in the room, both in senior leadership, in hospitality, and also my first career as a government economist in Westminster. And I mention that because I know from my experience leading HR for so long that everyone in this room and all the people in our workplaces that we have a duty of care towards will be navigating challenges in their personal lives at some point while they're navigating challenges at work. And I never want anyone to feel that that makes them less valuable, less capable, less deserving of progress. And in fact, as we've heard today, it's often just what makes everyone so incredibly, I was going to swear then, but so incredibly exceptional. And I know that everyone in this room brings personal as well as professional insight to the work that you do, and that's what makes it so powerful. And I wanted to start by introducing the board, exploring what makes your work so meaningful to you. I was going to start with you, Sofia. we've heard about women who do a lot, busy women who do lots. So as well as being head of HR at Hawksmoor, which has now been named a best company to work for 14 years in a row, and one of the first and the first UK restaurant group to become a B Corp, and just been reaccredited. So it's amazing, as well as the amazing work you do there. You sit on the London Mayor's steering group for women's safety at night.
So it's really easy, rolls off the tongue. It's the London Mayor's Women's Night Safety Charter Steering Group.
Basically, Sofia's an expert in women's safety at night and representing hospitality to look at women's safety in the night economy. Is that?
Yes, exactly. So I've been on that for 3 or 4 years now, I think it is. This is going to be really dark, and I'm so sorry about that, because we are talking about women's safety, so there's not a nicer way to put it. But we are at the 5-year anniversary of Sarah Everard's death, and with Nicole Smallman and Biba Henry as well. And it kind of built this rage in me and concern, and it also brought up everything that I had with the 25 years I have worked in hospitality. I started as a toddler. And all of those experiences, I thought about all the women that work for us, what is it like for them to go home at night? And that engaged me to really dive deeper into this subject and why I care so much about it. It made me want to see. It's easy sometimes when you are an HR person that you kind of just go with it, you have an idea and you want to run with it. But we set up a women's group at Hawksmoor, which is an exclusive to cis women, where we wanted to hear how it was for people in that experience, and really digging down into what it meant with male privilege and white privilege. And then I also found that often when I was talking about this, I was in a room full of women, and it became a very siloed experience. So that's why Culture Bar came, because I wanted to come out into hospitality more and talk about safety concern. And I started working with chefs, because it's a male-dominated industry, and having more men understand what it is to be a woman in our industry. And also speaking a lot about the white privilege that we hold in life and in death, as we could see with what happened with Sarah Everard and Nicole Smallman and Biba Henry. So that's what drives me, is to change that and to tackle it at a core level. Yeah, you work really hard. You're really committed to changing women's everyday experience. That's what really inspires me, and that insight into the experience that women have every day of harassment, traveling to and from work as well as at work. Yes, and I love law. I think it's amazing. When I grew up, we didn't have seatbelts properly. Then thanks to Swedish people, you all have them now. But the only reason people would wear a seatbelt is because it's the law. The only reason you set up a hospitality business and you make sure you don't poison people, have food safety and health and safety in place, is because it's the law. So the only way that we can see changes in our society when it comes to harassment, to sexual harassment, is that it's the law. You have to do this. And I'm very passionate about simplifying that and helping businesses understand that it's not that hard to make sure that your people are safe. So if you want to talk about the law with me, I'm super keen in that as well, and how to just make it simpler.
That's good, because we're going to get to that later. So Raj, coming to you, you are an award-winning culture and inclusion advisor. You have 20 years experience in hospitality. You've led work that has been recognized in the Times list of 50 best companies for gender equity. And you have spoken out about domestic abuse to raise awareness and to stop the stigma so we can start giving more support. And something that always impresses me is the level of insight you bring to the lived experiences of people in our organizations at all levels and from all walks of life and all backgrounds. And I'm curious how your lived experience has informed your understanding and your approach.
Absolutely, this is working great. So just for context, my experience in hospitality has been with Sodexo, where I worked for a total of 17 years up until last summer. My last 5 years of my time there, I led diversity, equity and inclusion for the UK and Ireland business. Currently going through a career transition. I'm building a portfolio career, so a very different way of working, doing associate, advisory and board roles. One of the key reasons why I'm going down the portfolio route is because of the flexibility it gives me as a mum to 2 young children and as a carer to my mum who has advanced dementia as well. My upbringing has had a huge influence and shaping of what I've chosen to do as my career, how I lead, and also some of the issues that I believe organisations need to be focusing on and tackling, particularly in regards to gender equity and gender equality. So my parents grew up in India. They had an arranged marriage. They didn't meet until their wedding day, where they flew over from India and had their wedding in England. So new relationship, new country, completely different ways. And they had to adapt, but they grew up in a very strict Eastern culture, whereas I was trying to grow up in a Western culture. So that sense of belonging, my identity, I really struggled with to find my place because I wanted to be like my friends, but my parents are still very much in the Eastern ways of doing things, very much you look after the men, sons are favoured. And don't get me wrong, I had a great childhood, I went to university, I had lots of opportunities, but you're brought up in that cultural framework. Unfortunately, my parents' marriage wasn't a great marriage. There was domestic abuse that I witnessed as a child growing up. And apologies if this is triggering for anyone, I don't want to upset anyone, but I think domestic abuse is an issue that as businesses we don't do enough on. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic abuse. 1 in 6 men will experience domestic abuse. By the time a child starts school, 1 child in every class in the first 5 years of their life will be in the house where there's domestic abuse taking place. So huge duty of care, but less than 5% of employers have a domestic abuse policy in place. When you think about the nature of hospitality, where our businesses are quite open as well, I talk a lot about work being a safe space, but actually in hospitality, it's not always the safest space. So I think there's a lot more work we need to do around domestic abuse, raising awareness, and actually helping to tackle it, because every 5 days, a woman loses her life to domestic violence. And that's huge. And there's a great organisation out there called Employers Initiative on Domestic Abuse, free to join. So many resources, so you don't know where to start, and that's a great place to do it. And so much we could be doing now that could literally save lives. So that's one thing I'm particularly passionate about raising awareness of.
Yeah, and if I encourage everyone to do one thing from today, it would be to check that website. You spoke about it, it really opened my eyes. I looked on there, it's very simple to join. Organisations can join, and HR professionals can join and help to support women and end domestic abuse. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Sunaina, you co-founded amazing restaurant group JKS with your brothers. We talked and you started on the floor in restaurant number 1.
That's right, yeah.
And you join us now as Chief People Officer, overseeing 26 restaurants in London that have won loads of awards, including for Best Employer type awards and 8 Michelin stars, and fresh from openings in Las Vegas and New York. So I'm really grateful for you for taking time out of what I know from my international work and juggling that with parenting, like a really hectic schedule. And what has really struck me is that not only are you raising the visibility of yourself as an inspirational female leader in hospitality, but you are also really thinking about how to progress other women and build their confidence and progress women throughout JKS. And I'm curious how your experience working alongside your brothers in hospitality has informed that.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me here. I guess so much to talk about, and I can relate to so much that's been said already. Joining the family business at the age of 22 and being the little sister and very much seen as the little sister around that table was was interesting, but it was just a continuation of home life, I suppose. I suppose the main thing for me was really, and I think it's going to be a theme that we talk about a lot, is confidence. And getting to the point where you feel, I should be standing my ground because I do know what I'm talking about. And so, I will not be spoken to about just because you're my big brother sort of thing. And I think really it's, I was so fortunate to, as a family, we took the risk. We went into hospitality having no background in it, and we were very fortunate enough to, be able to do that. And what came with that for me as, as a woman, as an Asian woman, trying to really fly a flag and open doors and, give opportunities to others as well, has meant that in the last few years, the way in which we've approached things like International Women's Day and any other sort of, really events of note where, generally speaking, it's the leaders in the business that get approached and asked to speak, which is great and wonderful to be recognized in that, and for people who actually do want to listen to what you have to say. But I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago now that I was speaking to our now MD, Laura. She was our CMO at the time. And we said, right, okay, International Women's Day, I've been asked to speak on this, you've been asked to speak on this, which ones are we doing, what are you, that sort of thing, where's... And then we said, hang on a minute, we've got so many amazing women who we work with, and not just at the senior-most level, throughout the entire business, from kitchens to, front of house, wine, finance, everywhere. When are they going to get the opportunity to speak? And it's one of those that unless you've done it, you don't necessarily build the confidence or think that you can do it. And it's not as if, other external companies who are putting on their events are going to think to reach out to that sous chef in the kitchen of Gymkhana to speak. So we took it upon ourselves to sort of put our own, event on, and have continued to do so for the last few years, where we talk about sort of, big topics, etc. But we also make sure that one of the panels at least is giving a voice to those within the business. As an opportunity for them to, to have the exposure and have the opportunity to have their voice heard. But also because there's some really valuable things that you can hear from these people. And, when we were talking about, we had a Gen Z panel, for example, and it just really helped bridge a gap and open up a conversation that I think a lot of us were scared to have. Likewise, we try to give those opportunities to as many people as possible, so that you do it once, they're like, yeah, Wembley Stadium's next, that sort of thing, to really ignite that fire, to give them the boost to go further.
Yeah, I love that, giving people a voice and finding safe ways of doing that. It's one of the first things Karen said to me when I joined the board. It's like, particularly as a woman, you have to find your voice, and just using those opportunities to give people tasters in it before they're sitting up and speaking in front of a lot of people. Camilla is like truly one of my heroines of hospitality, because you do so much that helps so many people in hospitality. But I expect not everyone knows what you do and that you're behind the scenes doing it. Do you want to introduce yourself, or shall I?
You can.
I was going to say,
yeah.
You go.
Okay.
Your services director.
Yeah. So it's lovely to be here, and I think today it's been wonderful to hear so many issues discussed that really resonate and really reflect, I think, the work that we're trying to do in Hospitality Action. So if you don't know about us, we're the industry benevolent charity, and we really see ourselves as the safety net for the industry. And I think, the question there was about, what makes it impactful and meaningful for me. And I think it's the difference that we can make individually and collectively. And for us as a team at Hospitality Action and the services team that I'm privileged to work with, it's about giving those voices and empowering people and giving immediate support to people. And, it is a tough industry to work in, and, the issues that we discussed and the things that come across my desk every day and my teams, there are, domestic violence, suicide, coercive control, a whole range of issues.
And I think that's what we're really about. We want to build that support network for women in hospitality, for everybody in hospitality, and really strengthen that safety net. And one of the ways that we do that is through data. So we do a mental health survey every year called Taking the Temperature. We take the data from what our beneficiaries tell us that it's impacting their life, whether it's their physical health, their mental health, their financial well-being, and we try and design our services to provide sort of support and solutions to that. So just to give you a little example of the impact that we had last year, and this is particularly looking at the impact we had for women last year, we provided over £1 million of hardship grants last year, and 58% of those were to women, so about £600,000 of support went to women. We found that 42% of our beneficiaries had dependent children in the house that were female beneficiaries versus 28% of male beneficiaries. And a lot of the work we do, it's hundreds of pounds to grants, but they make such an impact to people's lives. So just to give you one example, last year we provided £63,000 of support for 33 people who'd experienced domestic violence or were fleeing domestic violence. And 24 of those we supported into new accommodation, and we also gave them grants for sort of deposit first month's rent, household goods, and of those people, 22 of them had dependent children. So we're having that kind of impact. We're really, as I say, trying to empower and give a voice to people in our industry that perhaps don't have that support network. And that was one of the things I think came through really strongly today, is the power of that support network, and we want to be that part of that network for hospitality.
So for those of you who don't know, those grants that Hospitality Action give out, that 1 million that was given out last year, that's no strings attached. You just give people money because they're find themselves in hard times and they need it. I know people at Hawksmoor who have benefited from that. 600,000 of that went to women, including the situations that you talked about, to support women in our industry who are fleeing these situations, which is just amazing. Plus, the Employee Assistance Programme, which supports so many people, and the free helpline for everyone, even if their employer doesn't. So when Camilla says what passes across her desk, like, it is a massive amount of things every day that makes a massive amount of difference. To
so we do
women.
run a 24/7 helpline, and we have thousands of calls every year, and it's just there for everybody in hospitality when they need it, free of charge. And then we get some obviously great support. Our fundraising director Astrid's in the room with me today, so we rely every year on funds that are raised. We don't get any government support. We also take any surplus from our employee assistance programme and we reinvest it back into the charity as well.
So the money that goes to Hospitality Action makes a really big difference to all of the issues we've been talking about today. And also, I think from my point of view, we had a Hospitality Action and you still work with them at Hawksmoor, you can't support people if they don't know about it. And some of the people who'll be struggling with these issues, because they're invisible, it can be really hard to communicate it. And just, if there are HR people in the room, leaders in the room, just that constant communication that it's there, because a poster on the back of a toilet door can make a big difference. And often with this work, it is those ripples. You never know. You never know that people have benefited from it, and so many people benefit from what you do, which is amazing. And part of that reason that so much 600,000 was given to women in hospitality is because we know that when women clock into their jobs, it's more likely to be into insecure and low-paid jobs. I think exactly the jobs that have probably been most hit by the national insurance contributions and hours and jobs going. So they're more likely to live in persistent low incomes, so poverty, and particularly if they're single parents running a household, which is already incredibly tough.
And that actually just reminded me of one thing I forgot to say as well, is that we have an amazing team and we are always looking at ways to innovate. And one of the big innovations last year is we introduced an in-house welfare benefits advisor, because there is £24 billion of unclaimed benefits in the UK, and we really wanted to help people, perhaps, if English isn't their first language or they feel disenfranchised, to access some of that support and to give them sustainable income, not just the financial hardship grant at the moment of need. I'm delighted to say that we helped unlock £500,000 of unclaimed benefits last year, and the role has been so successful, we're going to introduce a second person into that role to just keep trying to, it's about kind of driving that sustainable income, and we always sort of try and benchmark against Joseph Rowntree Foundation, so it's not just about survival income. It's about an income that allows you to thrive, participate socially, let your children do after-school activities, just all those things that make a nice life for yourself and your family. And that's what we're really about, is just trying to drive that sustainable income and build that financial and emotional resilience as well.
So that's £500,000 worth of benefits for people that they weren't getting, people who work in our organisations.
In work, yeah.
And just for employers and teams here who want to do more, how else can Hospitality Action help them? And I'm thinking of your little gifts as well.
Yeah, so I have an amazing person on my team called Ife, and during the COVID, we used to do family days out. So we would give you money to maybe go to a theme park or go to the pantomime, particularly perhaps if you were coming out of a period of maybe there had been illness within the family or someone had passed away. We would try and do something to bring you together as a family, just have a nice normal day out. Obviously, we couldn't do that during the pandemic. So if I had the brilliant idea, well, we'll just do family days in. Literally, we probably give people £20 a head for the parents and the children, and we say, that's not money you have to think about, it's not something you have to budget for, just go to the supermarket. We used to just give supermarket vouchers, buy whatever food the children want, buy them a DVD, and just have that time together. And that has been one of the most simple but impactful things that we've ever done. And the photographs and letters and thank yous from the kids that we get, it's just been, it's made a huge difference. And it was, one really good idea on the team, and 5 years later, it's a big part of what we do as well.
Simple things can make a big difference.
Simple things, big difference, yeah.
Sofia, we know that there's a duty on employers to do everything that they can to prevent sexual harassment. You are an expert in women's safety. For organisations who want to do this really well, what does good look like? What does that involve?
I think the easiest way is not just sexual harassment now. The change is now for all harassment. And they make it really easy by not giving you examples on how to do it. They just call it all reasonable steps without telling you what they are. And that can feel a bit overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. And I think the easiest way to approach it is to put your ops hat on and start at it as a risk assessment. And a risk assessment is in the same way as you would do anything else within a building of a business, is identifying areas of concerns, because as we're going into this year, you will also be responsible for third-party harassment, i.e. your customers. That means, have you done everything you can to stop this from happening in the first place? What do you do when it happens, and how do you make sure it doesn't happen again? So I think the easiest way to start is a risk assessment. It's about training and helping people understand what language means in different circumstances. And what I mean by that is we work in an industry with amazing, brilliant people, majority of the time, but we have a strong culture of banter, which is really ingrained into how we communicate. Banter can be wonderful, but it's teaching people the understanding of the differences between what banter is. So you have friendly banter, which is great, wonderful. It's between equals. Everyone knows each other's limits and when to stop. It's also equal in terms of status and representations. What people don't realize when they become a leader is that they're probably not as funny as they think. If people are laughing because you're their manager, which means that people don't feel and sense check when you're crossing the line. Ignorant banter is, pardon my French, the shit happens area. And that can be sorted, and then helping people understand what that means. Malicious banter is where we're moving into, this is illegal and now we're going to go to court. And people are going to get fired. So I think it is simplifying and focusing on doing a risk assessment, having training in place, and listening to the people that work for you. So the women's group are great for that, and that's how we signed up to ADA, the Employers Initiative on Domestic Abuse. Free, has a free policy. It has free guidance. It has literally, you don't have to do anything. It's super nice, it's super easy. We did a collab with them now, and we raised £26,000 for them in 2025, and that makes a massive difference. So steps like that will just help and build build the groundwork of what it is that you need to do, but identifying what the situations are doesn't have to be expensive. And then obviously, yeah, joining the Women's Night Safety Charter. There's even an app now. But that helps just building the structure. It doesn't have to be so overwhelming to get to all reasonable steps.
So sign up to EDA and have a look at the Night Safety Charter and risk assess, involve your operations teams, because think about where women go for their cigarette breaks and safety in all of these different areas. So Raj, you often talk about changing the focus from fixing the woman, even if it's fixing
the hell out of me,
fixing these things, to fixing the system. What have you seen make a difference here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not easy, let's be honest. Gender inequity is a huge global issue. In the UK, we've got a gender pay gap. Women work for 47 days for free every year compared to what men earn. So it's not easy, but it's a combination of factors. You've got to tackle it from a multi-lens. I think first and foremost, do you really understand what is the lived experience for women in your business? Have you asked them what's working well, what you can elevate, but also where are the pinch points? For example, what's the experience of women returning from maternity? There's a thing called the motherhood penalty, where if you have your first child, it's predicted that women lose in earning $65,000 in the first 5 years. And that just gets worse if you have 2, 3 children. So how much money are you losing? What's their career trajectory come back from maternity? Things like that. You're doing your gender pay gap reporting if you're more than 250 employees. Are you just treating that as a compliance exercise that you do in March before the deadline in April? Or are you looking at that throughout the year and really trying to understand what is the data telling you? Because your reputation might be all right, but actually what's the lived experience going on? What is it like from an intersectional lens as well? So women with disabilities, women of colour, that comprehends it and makes it double glass ceiling. I think looking at your policies and practices, are they perpetrating women as the primary carers, for example? Another great takeaway I would recommend is, if you don't already, follow a guy called Elliot Ray, who's doing a campaign about parenting out loud, which is encouraging dads to really be open about their parenting commitments and when they're doing the school run and asking for flexible working as well. So, just changing the narrative about caring being a shared responsibility for both sets of parents and same-sex couples as well. So just a few takeaways there.
Think about parenting. And Sunaina, it's getting more optimistic, got women in management. How do you support them to progress?
Women in management? It's... I think everything that we can do to give the tools, but also just to have those open conversations, I think it's something that we talk a lot about and that I want to try and keep bringing awareness to, is the whole allyship piece as well. And making sure that it's not just a tick box. It's done for a reason. Everyone understands why why this is such an important point on our agenda, because we all need to be seen as equals, and it's, is that whole thing. It's, the rise of women has nothing to do with the fall of men, right? And I think it's very much that, as long as we can create this open space and open dialogue where, and, it can come via different channels. It's from open conversation, it can be through, suggestion boxes, it can be through whatever it is, but so that people, in the first instance, feel like it's an environment where they can thrive. And that they are going to be supported into those roles, and when they get into those roles, they know there's going to be the support there for them, as opposed to, okay, but when I get there, am I just going to be seen as being, waiting for me to fail, which I think, I've seen it for sure. So very much making sure that it is the right environment, it's done in the right reasons, and the foundation upon which you're building to get people into those positions is solid, really.
Yeah. I've heard you talk really powerfully about not setting people up to fail. So that is, once they get the job, making sure they have support to do it well.
Absolutely. So, and I think that's similar. We talk about return from work after maternity, and I think it's that as well, right? We know all of the challenges that come with it, and it's making sure that those, when people are returning to work, it's okay. We've got it. We've got quite a long phased return to work policy as well, to make sure that, okay, it's all very well. You might be coming back in when you found a nursery place or childcare for your child, but then you've just had maternity, which is a lot. And then you're coming straight back into work, which is a lot. So actually, if you've got the childcare and you're coming back 5 days a week, you know, for the first few weeks, just do 3 days, you know, so that you have those 2 extra days. If you've got the childcare, we'll still pay you for it, but just take the time to sort of feel you again. And again, I think these little things do set people up to succeed. And those conversations on, you know, whatever the growth is, whatever the trajectory is of your role, we're here to support that. But we realize that, you know, there are other things in how we can support you in that. It's not just about the, you know, career pathways and development. There are other things around that come with it.
Nice. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to wrap up our last 3 questions in one question, so you can choose what's most important for you to share. But all of you do extraordinary work, and on top of that, you juggle the challenges of being working women, whatever that means for you personally, care, childcare, being the only woman, whatever that is. What or who is the thing that has helped you the most to do that? And what is one thing that you would like everyone to take away and implement at work to improve things for women? Whoever's ready.
I'm happy to go. I think I'll close on a mantra then. So one of my favourite mantras, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is be the change you want to see in the world. You know, we've all got a responsibility at whatever level we're operating at. One of the biggest things that's made a difference to my career, and that's actually proven to make a difference generally, is having a sponsor. So someone who's advocating for me when I'm not in that room and championing me. So if you're a senior leader, be someone's sponsor. If you're not, and you haven't yet got a sponsor, get a sponsor. It can really make a difference. It really builds and takes the mentoring relationship that next step further.
I think for me, it's the realization that it's okay not to have everything sorted. Juggling home life, work life, it will swing in roundabouts. And I think once you can accept that, it does just take a bit of a weight off your shoulders. So, you know, it's like, okay, I know that there's going to be times when home life is more demanding and I just need to shift my priorities there and focus on that, and vice versa. And also the fact that, again, take some time and obviously don't always practice what I preach, but when I'm at home, I'm at home. When I'm at work, I'm at work, just to try and do that as much as possible, particularly just for the presence with the kids. And then for myself as well, because once they've gone to sleep, I do want to have time for me. So I think as long as there's some acceptance on those pieces, I feel it does help a lot, bring a lot of relief and lift a bit of a weight.
I mean, so Carrie hired me and I found out I was knocked up. And I was terrified, so I was going to not take the job because I wasn't going to tell her because I didn't know if it was going to stick because it hadn't before. So I was just sitting there waiting, super excited about tracking and hunting down the job I've always wanted, hoping I'll keep the baby, but not knowing how I'll tell her. And we had our first meeting and she was like, let's look at our plan. This is what we're going to do. This, blah, blah, blah. And my face, and I was like, and she's like, okay. And I was like, I'm pregnant. And I said, I don't have to start working here. And she says, fine, let's make this into a 6-month plan. And then you'll do your maternity leave and we'll keep going. And I think, why make it hard when you can make it easy? I mean, I know I was being hired to work in HR and we both knew her not hiring me would be very illegal. But equally, that guilt that I felt was just, you know. But I think that's one of the things is oftentimes people may just make it harder for no reason. There's no reason to sometimes just, oh, we have to do this, this, and this, and this, and that to make it happen. And it's better to just do it. And I've seen that working with you, Ceri. And it's just whenever you simplify things and don't overthink certain areas, it just makes life so much easier. And when someone comes to you like, I'm having a baby, or I'm getting divorced, or everything that I've done, it's never been a problem because life is such a big part of work, and that is the best thing that I've ever taken with anyone I ever line manage is your life is more important than working. So it's never a problem. So let's not make it hard. And I think that's the most important thing, especially for women in that situation.
Yeah. And I would really agree with that actually about just being your authentic self at work and having that open and honest culture. And I think with the teams that I lead, you know, that has really helped us sort of drive some change and some innovation in services and get through the pandemic and issue £500,000 worth of grants in 10 weeks because we had that kind of culture where we would just be very honest with each other, and it's really helped us. And I think just from the charity point of view, if there was one sort of ask that I could ask today is just if people could just give us a little bit of your time and have a look at what we do and ways you might be able to get involved, whether that's fundraising. We have a fantastic nationwide walk for wellbeing every October, so there's so many ways to give us some of your time, which helps us give that support network to the industry. So yeah, thank you.
So get a sponsor or be a sponsor, accept the mess. It's not all going to be great all the time. Cut yourself some slack. Work for Ceri, not sure. Be your authentic self. And then I think for this one, for me, pay it forward. Because it's true, that was our first meeting. I knew from the look on your face that something was not good. And I thought that you were not going to take the job. You were pregnant. And I remember I just said, that's amazing. Like, amazing, you're having a family, well done. And obviously I did that well because you thought I was very cool. Underneath the surface, I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much work, what am I going to do? But I had been in a similar situation where I'd got a job on promotion and was pregnant when I arrived. And it was a man who had 4 kids, and that's what he said to me. And it was an amazing thing to hear, and it's something that we can all pass on. So maybe let's all pass on some of the amazing things we've had. Thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for listening.